My name is Danny Walsh, and I'm what you might call professionally invisible. For 12 years, I've been the administrative assistant at Hoffman & Associates, a mid-tier law firm in our Rust Belt town of Millbrook. The lawyers call me their secretary, though I handle case research, client interviews, and half their legal briefs. But hey, who's counting? What I am counting these days is the lies my wife Amanda tells me every night when she comes home smelling like expensive cologne that definitely isn't mine. Working late again? I asked last Tuesday, watching her kick off designer heels I couldn't afford on my salary. She'd been pulling these marathon office sessions for 3 months now. You wouldn't understand, Danny. Some of us have real careers. She didn't even look at me, just headed straight for the shower. Clive's been mentoring me on the Henderson account. It's very demanding work. Clive Morrison, her boss at Morrison Development, 50-something, drives a BMW, owns half the commercial real estate downtown. The kind of guy who wears $1,000 suits and treats service workers like furniture. Must be some mentoring, I muttered, but she was already upstairs. Here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. You develop certain skills. You notice details other people miss. You remember conversations they forget having. And when your wife starts treating you like you're invisible, well, sometimes that works in your favor. The laptop incident happened Thursday night. Amanda left our shared computer open on the kitchen counter, Gmail still logged in. I wasn't snooping, just wanted to check my own email. But there it was, right at the top of her inbox. Can't wait to feel you again. Tonight was incredible. Your husband has no idea what he's missing. The sender, Clive M. Development. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Instead, I felt this cold, calculating calm settle over me. Like when I used to box at Murphy's gym downtown, right before landing a perfect counterpunch. I scrolled through their correspondence. 3 months of messages, explicit photos, hotel receipts, plans for weekend getaways while I thought she was visiting her sister in Cleveland. The worst part wasn't the cheating. It was how they talked about me. Danny's so pathetic, she'd written. Thinks he's important because he works at a law firm. He's literally just a secretary. I make twice what he does and you make 10 times that. Why should I settle for mediocrity? His response. Soon you won't have to, sweetheart. Once you file for divorce, I'll make sure you're taken care of. A woman like you deserves so much more than some small-town loser. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I took screenshots, lots of them. Then I dug deeper into her email, her browser history, her cloud storage. Turns out Amanda had been busy planning our divorce for weeks. She'd already consulted with Pierce & Associates, the most aggressive divorce firm in 3 counties. She'd been moving money from our joint savings into a personal account. She'd even been documenting fake instances of my emotional abuse, apparently asking her to help with household chores qualified as psychological manipulation. When she came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair still damp, I was watching television like nothing had happened. I'm exhausted, she announced. Clive really pushed the team hard today. I'll bet he did. She shot me a sharp look. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, honey, just agreeing with you. But something in my tone must have registered, because she studied my face for a long moment, before shrugging and heading to bed. I stayed up until 3 a.m, reading every email, studying every photo, memorizing every cruel comment. By dawn, I had a complete picture of my wife's betrayal and a rough outline of her exit strategy. What she didn't know was that the pathetic secretary had been handling divorce cases for Hoffman & Associates for 5 years. I knew every trick in the book, every legal loophole, every way to hide assets and manipulate custody agreements. More importantly, I knew exactly how to turn her own weapons against her. Friday morning, Amanda left early for another client breakfast with Clive. I called in sick to work and drove across town to Murphy's boxing gym, where my old friend Jules Kowalski was opening up for the day. "Danny boy," Jules grinned, unlocking the front door. "Haven't seen you in weeks. Amanda keeping you busy?" Something like that. I followed him inside, breathing in the familiar smell of leather and sweat. "Jules, I need advice. Hypothetically speaking, if someone betrayed you completely, how would you handle it?" Jules studied my face in the dim morning light filtering through the gym's windows. He'd known me since high school, back when we both thought we might make something of ourselves in the ring. Now, he owned this place and tended bar 3 nights a week at Murphy's Tavern. Not glamorous, but honest work. Hypothetically, he pulled on the light switches, fluorescence flickering to life. I'd make sure they regretted it, but I'd be smart about it. No point in winning a battle if you lose the war. What if they thought you were too stupid to fight back? Then they'd be in for a real surprise, wouldn't they? I spent an hour hitting the heavy bag, working out the rage and frustration until my knuckles were raw and my shirt was soaked with sweat. By the time I left, I had a plan. Amanda wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd picked the wrong opponent. The secretary was about to school the boss. Saturday morning brought the first test of my acting abilities. Amanda was getting ready for what she claimed was a team-building retreat at some resort 2 hours away. I knew from her emails it was actually a romantic weekend with Clive at the Lakeside Inn. "Will you miss me?" she asked, checking her makeup in the hallway mirror. She'd packed enough lingerie for a honeymoon. Terribly. I kissed her cheek, tasting expensive foundation. "Try not to work too hard." "Oh, I plan to work very hard this weekend." The double meaning hung in the air between us. She thought she was being clever, dropping hints that flew right over my stupid head. If only she knew I'd already called the Lakeside Inn and confirmed their reservation under Mr. and Mrs. Morrison. After she left, I got to work. First stop, downtown Millbrook, where I withdrew $5,000 from our joint savings account. Amanda had been skimming money for months, but she'd been sloppy about it, taking small amounts she thought I wouldn't notice. What she didn't realize was that I'd been documenting every transaction, building a paper trail that would make her theft crystal clear to any divorce judge. Next, I drove to the courthouse and filed for divorce myself, citing adultery and financial misconduct. Let her lawyers scramble to respond instead of setting the terms. But the real masterstroke was my choice of legal representation. Amanda thought she was so clever hiring Pierce and Associates. What she didn't know was that Thomas Green, senior partner at Green and Associates, owed me a massive favor. 2 years ago, I'd uncovered evidence that saved his biggest client from a wrongful termination lawsuit. He'd told me to call if I ever needed anything. Time to collect. "Danny Walsh," Green said when I walked into his office Monday morning. "I was wondering when you'd come see me." "You heard about Amanda?" "Small town, my friend. Word travels fast." He gestured to the chair across from his desk, especially when someone's wife starts flaunting her affair at public events. That caught me off guard. Public events? The Morrison Development Charity Gala last Friday night. Your wife and Clive Morrison were practically attached at the hip. Very cozy for a boss and employee. Green leaned back in his leather chair. Half the town's business community was there, including my wife. I felt that familiar cold calm settling over me. "I see. The question is, what do you want to do about it?" "I want to destroy them both." Green smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Now you're speaking my language." We spent 2 hours going over my evidence, the emails, the financial records, the hotel receipts, the fake abuse allegations Amanda had been preparing. Green's smile got wider with each revelation. "This is beautiful work, Danny. Thorough, methodical, legally bulletproof. Where did you learn to build a case like this? 12 years of watching lawyers work. Turns out I was paying attention. Indeed you were. He closed the file folder. Here's what's going to happen. Pierce and Associates thinks they're representing the wronged wife of an abusive, deadbeat husband. They're preparing for a slam-dunk case where Amanda gets the house, half your pension, and alimony for life. And instead, they're going to walk into a courtroom and discover their client is a documented adulteress who's been stealing marital assets and preparing false abuse claims. By the time I'm done, Amanda will be lucky to leave with the clothes on her back. I shook hands with the best divorce attorney in 3 counties, a man Amanda didn't even know existed. Then I drove home to wait for her return from her romantic weekend. She came through the door Sunday evening glowing with satisfaction, her hair still messed up from what I assumed was a very thorough team-building exercise. "How was the retreat?" I asked from the couch, not looking up from the television. "Productive. Very productive." She was practically purring. "Clive says I have real leadership potential. He's thinking about promoting me to regional manager." "That's wonderful, honey. You deserve recognition for all your hard work." She paused in the doorway, studying me with suspicion. "You're being awfully supportive." "Why wouldn't I be? I want you to be happy." "Right." She headed upstairs. "I'm going to shower, and then we need to talk." Here it comes, I thought, the divorce conversation. She'd probably rehearsed it all weekend with Clive, planning exactly how to break the news to her pathetic secretary husband. But when she came back downstairs in her robe, she didn't mention divorce. Instead, she started talking about changes she wanted to make around the house. New furniture, expensive renovations, a second car. "We should refinance the mortgage," she said, curled up next to me on the couch like a loving wife. "Interest rates are good right now." I almost laughed. She was trying to trap more of my assets before filing for divorce. Load up the house with debt, then stick me with the payments while she moved in with Clive. "Whatever you think is best," I said. "You're so much smarter about these things than I am." She smiled and kissed my cheek. "I'm glad you're finally recognizing that." Tuesday brought an unexpected development. I was at work, researching case law for one of Hoffman's personal injury suits, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Coffee at Mel's Diner, 6 p.m., come alone." A friend. Mel's Diner sat on the edge of downtown, the kind of place where truckers and shift workers grabbed cheap meals and strong coffee. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. At exactly 6 o'clock, a woman in her 40s walked in, scanning the room until she spotted me. Professional clothes, expensive handbag, the kind of polished appearance that screamed corporate management. She slid into the booth across from me without introduction. "You're Danny Walsh." "Depends who's asking." "Someone who knows what your wife has been up to." She signaled the waitress for coffee. "My name is Rebecca Morrison. Clive is my husband." The pieces clicked into place. "I see. Do you? Because from where I sit, we have a mutual problem." Rebecca Morrison had the kind of controlled fury that comes from years of swallowing rage. "My husband thinks he's being discreet, but 23 years of marriage teaches you to recognize the signs. What do you want from me?" "Cooperation. Clive's done this before, you know. 3 other times that I'm aware of. Young, ambitious women who think they're going to replace the wife and live happily ever after in his big house." She sipped her coffee, studying me over the rim. "It never works out that way. What happens to them? He gets bored, finds someone newer, younger, more exciting. The discarded mistresses usually get fired for performance issues or budget cuts. Very tidy." I felt a spark of something that might have been sympathy for Amanda. Then I remembered her emails calling me pathetic, and the feeling passed. "So what's your plan?" I asked. Rebecca smiled, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I was looking at someone more dangerous than myself. "Mutual assured destruction," she said. "I take half of everything Clive owns. and you make sure your wife doesn't get to be his soft landing." We shook hands across the diner table, two betrayed spouses forming an alliance that would have terrified our cheating partners if they'd known about it. But they didn't know. They thought they were so much smarter than us, so much more sophisticated and worldly. They were about to learn otherwise. The Morrison Development Summer Picnic was held every July at Riverside Park, a company tradition that brought together employees, clients, and half of Millbrook's business community. Amanda had been excited about it for weeks, buying a new dress and getting her hair done at the most expensive salon in town. "It's important for my career," she explained, twirling in front of the bedroom mirror. "Clive wants me to meet some potential clients. This could be huge for us." For us. Right. I played the supportive husband perfectly, telling her how beautiful she looked and how proud I was of her success. What I didn't mention was that I'd also been invited to the picnic, not as Amanda's +1, but as Thomas Green's guest. Green had been Morrison Development's attorney for 15 years, and apparently my legal research had impressed him enough to warrant an introduction to some of his other clients. The picnic was in full swing when we arrived separately. Amanda made a grand entrance in her new dress, immediately gravitating toward Clive's circle of executives and clients. I watched from across the park as he put his hand on her back, guiding her through introductions with the casual possessiveness of a man showing off his latest acquisition. "Quite a performance," Green murmured, appearing at my elbow with 2 beers. "Your wife seems very comfortable in her new role. She's always been ambitious, and Clive's always had an eye for ambitious women." Green's tone was carefully neutral, but I caught the implication. "Shall we go mingle? I'd like you to meet some people." For the next hour, Green introduced me around the party as his research specialist and case strategist, titles that made me sound far more important than any secretary had a right to be. I shook hands with judges, prosecutors, and business owners who treated me with the kind of respect I'd never received at my own job. The whole time, I kept one eye on Amanda and Clive. They were putting on quite a show, laughing at each other's jokes, standing just a little too close, sharing private smiles that they thought were subtle. Other people were noticing too. I caught several wives exchanging meaningful glances, the kind of look that said the gossip networks would be buzzing by tomorrow. Perfect. The confrontation I'd been planning happened during the softball game. Morrison Development had challenged the law firms to a friendly competition, and somehow I found myself playing first base while Clive pitched for his team. Third inning, bases loaded, I came to bat. Clive wound up and threw what was probably meant to be an easy strike. Instead, I connected with a solid crack that sent the ball sailing over the left field fence. Grand slam. As I rounded the bases, I made sure to catch Clive's eye. He was staring at me with the kind of surprise you see when someone's assumptions get shattered. The pathetic secretary had just shown up his boss in front of half the town. "Nice hit," he said when I crossed home plate. "Thanks. Guess all those years at Murphy's Gym paid off." "Murphy's Gym?" His voice carried a note of uncertainty. Murphy's had a reputation for training serious fighters, not weekend warriors. "Been boxing there since high school. Jules Kowalski's been teaching me to throw a punch for 20 years. I smiled pleasantly. "You should come by sometime, always looking for new sparring partners." Clive's face went pale. He was beginning to realize that the harmless husband might not be as harmless as advertised. The real fireworks started during dinner. The company had set up long tables under a pavilion, with employees and guests mixing freely. I ended up seated directly across from Amanda and Clive, close enough to hear their whispered conversation. "Who invited him?" Amanda hissed, glaring at me over her chicken breast. "Green brought him as a guest," Clive replied. "Apparently he's been doing legal research for some of the firms in town." "He's a secretary, Clive. He files papers and answers phones." "Maybe, but did you see that home run? And the way people were talking to him? Your husband might be more than he appears." I could see the wheels turning in Amanda's head. For 3 months, she'd been operating under the assumption that I was too stupid and too weak to be a threat. Now, doubt was creeping in. Good. Doubt led to mistakes, and mistakes led to opportunities. After dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. On the way back, I took a detour past the parking lot, where Clive's BMW sat gleaming under the streetlights. Beautiful car, probably cost more than I made in 2 years. I pulled out my pocket knife and considered my options. Slashing tires was tempting but crude. Instead, I used the tip of the blade to scratch a message into the paint on the driver's side door. Compliments of the secretary. Petty? Absolutely. Satisfying? You bet. I was walking back toward the pavilion when a voice called out behind me. "Excuse me, young man." I turned to find Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, Millbrook's self-appointed moral guardian and most prolific gossip, approaching with her purse clutched tightly in her arthritic hands. "Mrs. Patterson, lovely evening, isn't it?" "Indeed it is." She looked past me toward the parking lot. "I couldn't help but notice you near the cars. Everything all right?" Busted. Mrs. Patterson had eyes like a hawk and the investigative instincts of a federal prosecutor. But she also had a weakness for flattery and a deep appreciation for small-town drama. "Just getting some air," I said. "Beautiful night for a walk." "Yes, it is." She studied my face in the dim light. "You know, I've been watching you tonight, Danny. You seem different somehow, more confident." "Thank you, ma'am. I've been trying to step out of my comfort zone." "Good for you." She patted my arm with genuine warmth. A man should stand up for himself, especially when others aren't treating him with proper respect. The implication was clear. Mrs. Patterson had noticed Amanda's behavior, probably had opinions about it, and was offering her tacit approval for whatever response I might be planning. "I appreciate that, Mrs. Patterson. Really." "Of course, dear. Now, I should get back to my table. But Danny?" She fixed me with a meaningful stare. "If you ever need someone to talk to, my door is always open. I've lived in this town for 73 years. I know where all the bodies are buried." She walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with the distinct impression that I'd just gained a very dangerous ally. The party wound down around 10 o'clock. Amanda was quiet on the drive home, stealing glances at me when she thought I wasn't looking. Finally, as we pulled into our driveway, she broke the silence. "You were different tonight." "Different how?" "I don't know. More present, I guess. People were actually talking to you like you mattered." "Maybe I do matter." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Don't get ahead of yourself, Danny. One good softball game doesn't change who you are." "Doesn't it?" She stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head and got out of the car. I followed her into the house, watching as she checked her phone for messages from Clive. Her face went white. "Something wrong?" I asked innocently. "Someone vandalized Clive's car tonight, scratched up the paint." "That's terrible. Any idea who would do such a thing?" "No, but—" She looked at me suspiciously. "You didn't see anything, did you? When you went to the bathroom?" "Sorry, honey. Wasn't paying attention to the parking lot." She studied my face, searching for tells, but 12 years of marriage had taught me to hide my thoughts from her just as well as she thought she was hiding hers from me. "I'm going to bed," she said finally. "Sweet dreams." After she went upstairs, I sat in my home office and opened my laptop. Time to escalate things. I had Rebecca Morrison's phone number, and I suspected she'd be very interested to hear about tonight's performance. The text I sent was simple. Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2. Her response came back within minutes. "Excellent. Let's meet tomorrow. Time to turn up the heat." I smiled and closed the laptop. Amanda thought she was playing chess while I was stuck playing checkers. She was about to discover that the game had changed, and she wasn't nearly as good at it as she thought. The meeting with Rebecca Morrison took place at a coffee shop in the next town over, far enough from Millbrook to avoid prying eyes. She was already waiting when I arrived, studying a manila folder thick with documents. "Productive evening?" she asked as I sat down. "Educational. Your husband's starting to realize he underestimated the opposition." "Good, because I have news that changes everything." She slid the folder across the table. "My private investigator finished his background check on your wife." I opened the folder and started reading. What I found made my carefully controlled anger flare into something much hotter. Amanda's resume was a masterpiece of creative fiction. The MBA from Northwestern? She'd taken 2 night classes and dropped out. The previous job at a Chicago marketing firm? She'd been a receptionist for 6 months before getting fired for attendance problems. The glowing references from former supervisors? Complete fabrications. "She's been lying about everything," I said, flipping through page after page of documented fraud. "It gets better. Or worse, depending on your perspective." Rebecca pointed to a section near the back of the file. "She's not even legally divorced from her first husband. Apparently she never filed the final paperwork in Illinois, which means your marriage might not be valid." I stared at the documents, feeling pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "That's why she's been so careful about the money. She's not entitled to anything if we're not legally married." "Exactly. And if Clive knew about this, he'd drop her immediately. He can't afford to be associated with someone who's committed marriage fraud." "Does he know?" "Not yet, but he will when the time is right." Rebecca's smile was predatory. "The question is, how do you want to play this?" We spent the next hour planning Amanda's destruction with the methodical precision of generals preparing for war. Rebecca would handle the financial side, using her divorce proceedings to expose Clive's pattern of affairs and his company's questionable business practices. I would focus on Amanda's professional and personal reputation, using her fabricated background to destroy her credibility. But first, we needed to separate them, to make each of them vulnerable by removing their mutual support system. "There's a Morrison Development Board meeting next week," Rebecca said. "Clive's been pushing for a major expansion project, something that would basically double the size of the company. He needs unanimous board approval. And I happen to know that 2 of the board members have been having affairs of their own, affairs that their wives don't know about." She pulled out another set of photographs. "My investigator has been very thorough." I studied the pictures. Board members I recognized from the picnic, caught in compromising positions with women who definitely weren't their wives. "Mutually assured destruction," I said. "Precisely. They vote against Clive's expansion, or their wives get some very interesting photographs in the mail." "What about Amanda?" "Leave her to me. I'm going to offer her a job." That caught me off guard. "A job?" "Morrison Development's biggest competitor has been looking for a marketing director. The pay is excellent, the benefits are generous, and the position comes with a company car." Rebecca's smile turned vicious. "Of course, they'll want to verify her credentials before making a formal offer." I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The plan was diabolical in its simplicity. Amanda would jump at the chance for a better job, especially one that would make her less dependent on Clive. But when her new employers discovered her fabricated resume, she'd be fired and blacklisted throughout the industry. "You're evil," I told Rebecca. "I'm motivated. There's a difference." We shook hands and went our separate ways. I drove back to Millbrook feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time since discovering Amanda's betrayal, I felt like I was in control of the situation. That feeling lasted exactly 3 days. Wednesday evening, I came home from work to find Amanda pacing around the living room like a caged animal. Her face was flushed with excitement, her eyes bright with possibility. "Danny, you'll never guess what happened today." "Try me." "I got a job offer, a real job offer with Hartwell & Associates. They want me to be their new marketing director." I managed to look surprised. "That's wonderful, honey. How did this happen?" "A headhunter called me out of the blue. Apparently my reputation in the industry is better than I thought. She was practically bouncing with excitement. The salary is twice what I make now, plus bonuses, plus a company car. We could finally afford to live the way we deserve. She was still talking about us as a team, probably because she hadn't figured out how to break the news about her divorce plans. When do you start? Next Monday, assuming the background check goes smoothly. A shadow of concern crossed her face. It will go smoothly, won't it? I mean, there's nothing in my past that could cause problems? Of course not. You're the most honest person I know. She hugged me, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the emails calling me pathetic, and the feeling passed. The background check took exactly 4 days. I know because Rebecca called me with updates every morning, tracking the progress as Hartwell and Associates discovered layer after layer of Amanda's deception. They're furious, Rebecca reported on Friday, not just about the lies, but about the waste of time. They've already started legal proceedings to recover their recruitment costs. And Amanda? Still doesn't know. The call comes Monday morning. I spent the weekend watching Amanda prepare for her new career. She bought new clothes, researched the company, even practiced her introduction speech in front of the bathroom mirror. Her excitement was genuine, which made what was coming even more devastating. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of weather that matched my mood perfectly. Amanda left for Morrison Development early, planning to give her notice before starting her new job on Wednesday. The call came at 10:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I was watching the clock, waiting for it to happen. My phone rang first. Amanda's number, but when I answered, I could barely understand her through the tears and rage. They rescinded the offer, she sobbed. They said I lied about everything. My education, my experience, my references. They're talking about suing me for fraud. Slow down, honey. What exactly did they say? That I'm a liar and a cheat and they never want to see me again. Her voice cracked with hysteria. Danny, what am I going to do? If word gets out about this, I'll never work in marketing again. Come home, I said. We'll figure something out. But even as I spoke the words, I knew there was nothing to figure out. Rebecca's plan had worked perfectly. Amanda's career was over, her reputation was destroyed, and her value to Clive Morrison had just dropped to 0. She came through the front door like a hurricane, throwing her purse across the room and collapsing onto the couch in tears. For 20 minutes, she raged about unfair treatment and corporate conspiracy theories, never once considering that her own lies might have consequences. This is all your fault, she said finally, turning on me with sudden vicious clarity. If you made decent money, I wouldn't have had to exaggerate my qualifications. If you were a real man instead of just a secretary, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere for support. Elsewhere? The question slipped out before I could stop it, and Amanda's face went white as she realized what she'd revealed. I didn't mean... That's not what I... What did you mean, Amanda? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating whether to continue the lie or finally tell the truth. The truth won, probably because she was too emotionally exhausted for more deception. I've been seeing Clive, she said quietly. For 3 months. He makes me feel important, valued. Things you stopped doing years ago. I see. That's it? That's all you have to say? I looked at my wife, my possibly not legally married wife, sitting on our couch in her expensive clothes, crying about consequences she'd brought on herself, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. What would you like me to say, Amanda? Fight for me. Get angry. Show me that you care. But I don't care. Not anymore. She stared at me in shock, as if the idea that her betrayal might have actual consequences had never occurred to her. You don't mean that. I do. In fact, I think you should pack a bag and go stay with Clive for a while. Give us both some space to think. Danny, I'm not angry, Amanda. I'm just done. She left that evening with 2 suitcases and a confused expression, still not understanding that the pathetic secretary had just outmaneuvered her completely. After she was gone, I poured myself a drink and called Rebecca Morrison. "Phase 2 complete," I reported. "Excellent. How did she take it?" "About as well as expected. She's probably at Clive's place right now, crying on his shoulder about her terrible day." "Perfect timing, then, because Clive's about to have a terrible day of his own." "The board meeting?" "Tomorrow morning. By noon, your wife's boyfriend is going to discover that his business expansion has collapsed, his company is under investigation, and his wife is filing for divorce." I raised my glass in a toast to the empty house. "Here's to mutual assured destruction." "Indeed. But Danny? We're not done yet. The real fun starts tomorrow." She was right. Amanda and Clive thought they'd hit rock bottom, but they were wrong. They were about to discover that rock bottom had a basement. The Morrison Development Board meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock Tuesday morning. By 10:15, Rebecca's plan was in motion, and by 10:30, Clive Morrison's world was falling apart. I wasn't there to see it happen, but Rebecca gave me a detailed report that afternoon when we met at Murphy's Tavern. Jules had given us a private booth in the back, far from curious ears. "It was beautiful," Rebecca said, sipping her wine with obvious satisfaction. Clive walked into that boardroom expecting unanimous approval for his expansion project. Instead, he got ambushed by questions about his personal conduct and its impact on company reputation. "The affairs?" "All of them. Apparently, word had gotten around about his relationship with your wife, and several board members were concerned about potential harassment lawsuits. When pressed, Clive admitted to the relationship, but claimed it was consensual and wouldn't affect business operations. Bad move. Terrible move. Because that's when I walked in with my attorney and a stack of documents proving that this wasn't his first workplace romance. 3 previous affairs with subordinates, all of whom left the company under mysterious circumstances. I whistled low. "How did the board take that?" "About as well as you'd expect. The expansion project was voted down unanimously. Clive was placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation, and the company's insurance carrier was notified about potential liability issues." "And Amanda?" Rebecca's smile turned predatory. "Ah, that's where it gets interesting. Clive tried to use her as a character witness, claiming their relationship proved he wasn't a predator. So I had my attorney present Amanda's employment records. The fake credentials. Among other things. Turns out Morrison Development never properly verified her background when they hired her. Now they're facing questions about their hiring practices, their supervision protocols, and their liability for employing someone who'd committed resume fraud. I felt that familiar cold satisfaction settling over me. So she's fired. Worse, she's toxic. No company in town will touch her after this. She's professionally radioactive. We spent another hour going over the details, savoring every moment of our enemy's destruction. By the time I left Murphy's Tavern, I felt like a general reviewing a successful campaign. But the war wasn't over yet. I came home to find Amanda's car in the driveway and lights on throughout the house. She was in the kitchen, making coffee with shaking hands, her face streaked with tears and makeup. "Bad day at the office?" I asked. She whirled around, eyes blazing with fury and desperation. "You did this. Somehow, you orchestrated all of this. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Danny. The job offer that disappeared, the board meeting, the investigation into Clive's company. This is too coordinated to be coincidence." I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table, studying my wife with detached curiosity. "You're giving me way too much credit, Amanda. I'm just a secretary, remember?" "Stop saying that." "Why? It's what you've been calling me for months. The pathetic secretary who doesn't understand how the real world works." She stared at me, and I could see her mind racing, trying to connect dots that would explain how her perfect plan had gone so wrong. "Clive thinks you hired a private investigator." "Did I?" "He thinks you've been planning this for months, gathering evidence, building a case against us. Sounds like something a smart person would do, but I'm just a secretary. She slammed her coffee cup down on the counter, sloshing hot liquid across the granite surface. Enough! I know you're behind this somehow. The question is, what do you want? Want? To make this stop, to call off whatever dogs you've set loose on us. Her voice cracked with desperation. I'll do anything, Danny. I'll end things with Clive. I'll go to counseling. I'll be the wife you want me to be. Just make it stop. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered 3 months of lies and betrayal and cruel laughter at my expense. It's too late for that, Amanda. It's never too late. We can fix this. We were never legally married. The words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, gripping the counter for support. What? Your divorce from your first husband. You never filed the final paperwork in Illinois, which means our marriage ceremony was just an expensive party. Her face went white. How did you... That's not... I can explain. I'm sure you can. But I'm not interested in explanations anymore. I stood up and walked toward the door. I want you out of my house by Friday. Your house? Danny, we bought this place together. I have rights. Actually, you don't. The deed is in my name only, remember? You insisted on it for tax purposes. I paused in the doorway. Funny how these things work out. I left her standing in the kitchen, staring at the wreckage of her carefully constructed lies. There was more I could have said, more ways I could have twisted the knife, but I'd made my point. The pathetic secretary had just checkmated the queen. Thursday brought the final piece of the puzzle. I was at work, pretending to care about case law research, when Thomas Green called me into his office. Danny, I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. How would you feel about a career change? I need someone to head up my new investigative division. Someone with your research skills and attention to detail. I stared at him. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. 20% equity, full benefits, and a salary that's triple what you're making now. He leaned back in his chair. The way you handled your divorce case was impressive. Methodical, thorough, completely professional. Those are exactly the qualities I need in an investigative partner. What about Hoffman and Associates? What about them? You've been wasted there for 12 years doing work that's beneath your capabilities. Green smiled. It's time you got the recognition you deserve. I shook hands with my new business partner, then walked back to my desk to write my resignation letter. After 12 years of being treated like invisible furniture, I was finally stepping into the light. Friday came gray and rainy, matching my mood as I watched Amanda load her belongings into a rented moving truck. She'd found a studio apartment across town, the kind of place that rented by the week and didn't ask too many questions about employment history. This isn't over, she said, standing in the doorway with her last suitcase. I'll find a way to prove you set me up. Good luck with that. And Clive will bounce back. Men like him always do. Maybe, but not with you. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. What's that supposed to mean? It means Clive Morrison needs a wife who can help his career, not hurt it. Someone with connections, credibility, social standing. I smiled pleasantly. Someone who's not professionally radioactive. He loves me. He loved the idea of you, the successful marketing executive with the MBA and the bright future. But that person never existed, did she? Amanda stared at me for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she picked up her suitcase and walked out of my life forever. I closed the door behind her and stood in the silence of my empty house. Outside, the moving truck pulled away, taking the last remnants of my failed marriage with it. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca Morrison. Clive filed for bankruptcy this morning. The investigation ruined his business. Thought you'd want to know. I typed back, perfect. Justice served. Indeed. Pleasure working with you, partner. I walked into my home office and sat down at the desk where this whole thing had started 4 months ago. The laptop was still there, the same one where I'd discovered Amanda's betrayal, but now it felt different, lighter somehow. I opened a new document and started typing, Walsh Investigative Services, specializing in matrimonial investigations, background verification, and corporate security. It had a nice ring to it. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Danny Walsh. Mr. Walsh, this is Patricia Henderson. I got your name from Thomas Green. I think my husband is having an affair, and I need someone to help me prove it. I smiled and reached for a notepad. I'd be happy to help, Mrs. Henderson. Why don't you tell me what's been going on? As she talked, I took notes with the methodical precision that had served me so well over the past 4 months. Another cheating spouse, another betrayed partner looking for justice, another case where the underestimated underdog might just come out on top. Long live the investigator. Outside, the rain had stopped, and sunlight was breaking through the clouds. It was going to be a beautiful day.